the director tells them to clear the set so he can fucking make out with her right then. And she's like, can Diane stay? He's like, yeah, she can stay.
Which is just Camilla just rubbing it in her face.
But that's what Diane would have wanted. So
I finally
Watched.
I finally
Watched.
I
finally
watched. I
finally
watched.
I finally
Watched.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of I Finally Watched. I'm Milan.
and this is David, and today we finally watched Mulholland Drive. I had a little question on that Wii. I forgot for a second, but yeah, neither
Did
of us
we?
had seen this.
Did we watch it? Yes, we did. So this is in honor of the late David Lynch. And
In honor?
in his honor.
I thought you said this is an honor, like us doing this for him.
Oh,
But
I
yeah,
said
no,
his honor. I said in his honor.
yes.
That's what I said. And
Play the tape back.
you know what's funny is that our first David Lynch movie was last year. It was Eraserhead, and that was just by coincidence. No way we knew he was going to die.
We don't have that type of ability. Yeah, so we're doing this. This is obviously going to come out a few weeks after because we'd already recorded a bunch of stuff, even though now we're behind again. But I was like, I think this is probably his most heralded movie. I remember seeing the ads growing up. And I also want to do this one because I felt like this one might be the most normal of his movies.
Maybe.
Which when I watched it the first time, I was like, oh no, it's not. This movie is highly like confusing and doesn't make sense.
So what did you mean? Because you text me actually this movie's pretty normal. What did you mean by that?
Well, so I watched it a second time. I also looked up a little bit, which you'd probably assume I did beforehand. And this movie reminds me of so many other movies that we've done, but not in a way that really makes sense.
Okay, me too. But it is safe to assume that those movies, or at least the majority of the ones that I'm thinking about, are inspired by this movie, not the other way around.
Okay, well, so for the first one is Tenet.
Oh, okay, interesting.
So yes, it's not going to make sense at all. Tenet, in that when you first watch it, you're so focused on the things that don't matter that it's way more confusing. But then when you watch it again, you realize like, oh no, like that stuff's not important and it's just, you just have to accept it. Like you have to accept time travel. And in this case,
time travel.
You know what I'm talking about. Like,
It's an inverse of...
It's kind of time travel, but in this movie,
okay.
So I like the spoiler is that Naomi Watts is Diane, right? And Betty is sort of a dreamlike state. The first 2/3 of the movie are a dream. That's what I read, and then when you watch it again, like it's actually fairly fucking obvious. I think
even the what's confusing to me is even the scenes where Betty is not in, those are still part of her dream.
Correct. Yeah. But there is like one tiny scene that's sort of not, but I guess could be anyway.
Which is even farther, even like more confusing on anything containing Robert Forster. Because there's a...
What do you mean anything? You mean the one scene?
No. I have the Criterion collection.
Oh, is that you got an extra scene?
There's a deleted scene of him with his partner back at the police station talking about finding like a blood sample that they need to like go through. And what's funny about that is knowing how this movie ends, watching that scene is like it's no wonder why they cut it, right? Is because that doesn't matter. There's no like going to check this blood sample, you know?
Correct. Yeah. So like once you sort of realize like, oh, I'm not paying attention to the right things. Because when you first watch this, you're like, oh, this is a mystery. Let's figure out who this woman is. Right. But then at the end, you're like, oh, okay, that's not what I should have been paying attention to. And you watch it again, you're like, oh, it all kind of falls into. And then I will say, so like the movie's fairly easy to understand upon second watch, but there's things that you'll find more and more on each watch. I almost was like, let's push this back another day so I can watch this a third time. Just because I think there's things I was missing.
I can't wait. I can't wait to go into this because I think you're right. Now there's no way I'm saying that you are incorrect. I think you're absolutely right. But there's some things that I feel like are just not explained away. Like you can't, like there's some stuff or some scenes or like shots that last literally half a second long that I would love for you to try to explain.
Sure. The other two movies are I'll go with the more obvious one, which is Vertigo, in that like the beginning part is just not real. It's all this ruse that's fake, right? And in this, it's a dream. But we just did Vertigo last year, like late last year, so it makes me think of that. And then the other one is Ocean's 12.
How is it none of the ones I'm thinking of?
Okay, well, you can tell me yours in a second. But in Ocean's 12, spoiler alert, they go through this whole movie to trick this guy when in reality they had already like done the heist and the caper like 30 minutes into the movie. So the rest of the movie like doesn't matter. And in this case, it's like the first hour and 45 minutes of this movie don't really matter that much because it's a dream. Like if you accept that interpretation, which I think you do, because the one thing there is this, I read on IMDb, it was this David Lynch's 10 clues to unlocking this thriller. And I was like, all right, well, I don't even know if this is real or whatever. It turns out that this was the insert to the DVD that he created.
I took a screenshot. Oh my God, I took a screenshot of this. I totally forgot that I had this on my phone.
Yeah, Mulholland Drive, David Lynch's 10 clues to unlocking this thriller, which we can, I think when we're about to start going through the plot, I think I can I'll read that out so we can sort of have it as a baseline. Good. But I think that once you have that, which I want to say I really appreciate that because this movie is so odd that.
Can I ask you a question? Here's an important question.
Okay.
Is it a better movie now that you know?
Yes. Yeah, okay. I think it's way better. I think it because I don't have a problem with very artistic, expressionistic type movies that maybe don't even need a plot per se. But I don't know. I need it to make sense. And this movie makes no sense. And it's also introduces a bunch of things that you're like, oh, we never get explained. We never get a payoff for it. But when you then realize it's a dream, it's actually fucking perfect. Some of the things where it's so the tangent of going to the director's house where his wife is cheating on him with Billy Ray fucking Cyrus. And then he, to get back at her, finds pink paint to put all over her jewelry. That's to me dreamlike. You're having a dream that's this one reality, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, how did I end up in the Roman Colosseum? I don't know, where did this come from? And then you'll get back onto your dream.
How often do you think about the Roman Empire?
It's kind of my Roman Empire. I never think about the Roman Empire unless I'm watching Gladiator. So, and then soon Gladiator 2.
Watching. I haven't seen Megalopolis, but someone was like, how often do you think Francis Ford Coppola dreams of the Roman Empire? It's way too much. Anyways, so my two movies, I think one is pretty obvious, is Fight Club.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That was one I thought of too. Yeah.
Yeah. Fight Club was a big one, but the biggest one, the tone, the theme of evil corruption of Hollywood, is Under the Silver Lake.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I had those two as well. And I have a confession to make, which is not a proud moment for me, but I'm going to tell you anyway, is that I had this movie spoiled for me a little bit, and I called you and talked to you about this.
Oh, yeah. What part?
I went on to IMDb, and I was scrolling down, and I saw Naomi Watts, Betty Elms, and Diane Selwyn, and then Laura Herring, Rita, and Camilla Rhodes. And I was like, oh, shit. And the reason I had that spoiled for me is because I was going down to the rating section to see if there were any nude scenes coming up in the movie. Because I was like, is this not I thought this was a lesbian movie.
It is a lesbian movie.
The way it was advertised was as a lesbian movie. And I always thought, and I think it's because it ended up in some sort of I think I've seen it in like a reel of like the love of cinema, and you see those two women sitting in a theater. I always assumed they were watching movies in a movie theater
No.
from that scene because I had seen it cut that way. It's not at all. And I was, so I was a little disappointed. But anyway, so I had that ruined for me, the names, but then I called you and I was like, this movie's so confounding that I was like, that doesn't actually ruin anything for me because I don't, and it did. It should have ruined it for me, but it didn't. I was like, I don't know what that's going to mean because we've seen Camilla. We've seen I don't know if I think I'd seen the dead body of Diane by that point, maybe, or I don't know. So I was like,
well, we don't know that's Diane. Like, it's the body is so decomp that you can't tell
it kind of looked like the homeless guy, actually, the face. So maybe is that Naomi Watts behind that dumpster?
I wondered that myself too, because all right, hold on. Let's read through the 10 ways of getting through this movie,
Okay.
and then let's go through the plot, because I feel like we each probably have a lot to say on every big plot point. I do want to add that watching this in the Criterion Collection, very annoying. I will say about this, the Criterion Collection of Mulholland Drive, get a fucking scene selection menu, okay? So I don't have to fucking like go through this whole thing. That's so annoying.
He did that on purpose.
What?
I was reading. He did that on purpose because he wanted to make it so people would be more likely to watch the movie in one sitting. Which I read there's like several other people who've done that. That's fucking annoying. Like there's no way I could watch this movie in 2.5 hours. Like my children were sick the last 3 days as I'm trying to watch this twice. So like I had to finish when I could. I finished my second watch 8 minutes ago. We're 11 minutes in, so it just finished while we were
That's
talking.
the way we do it here on the pod.
Yeah, well, I watched it twice this time, which is the first time in like 3 years. So I'm going to read, here are the 10 clues.
All right.
The first one, pay particular attention in the beginning of the film. At least 2 clues are revealed before the credits. So let's just talk about that real quick because it's the first thing. So you see the jitterbug dancing, and then you see Betty, Naomi Watts, standing there like almost like winning, accepting an award.
Right.
And you see her
parents.
That's what I was like. Are those her parents and they're like dead? And so that's why it makes it more likely that this was a dream, because like her parents are like flew out there with her, but she's acting like they're different people, that they're just these random people that were like, good luck, sweetheart. Like, we'll be looking for you in the pictures.
David Lynch also likes to do this thing where it's like once the side characters are removed from like the main plot, they just do something fucking weird, and he dedicates like a scene or a shot of them doing something fucking weird. When they're in the limo and they're laughing, I'm like, this is the David Lynch weird shot.
The craziest fucking smiles. Like if I saw those people, I'd be like, we need to murder them because they're gonna like bring on the apocalypse.
I was gonna say we need to leave, but you're like, no, we need to kill them.
Well, they're old anyway. They've sort of had their time.
That's true.
And then the other thing is like the red bed, and you hear like kind of like heavy breathing, and I'm like, I feel like that's Diane's bed, right? And she's either doing drugs, sleeping, like about to go to sleep. I think she takes medicine probably to make herself go to sleep, probably like in the form of that coffee or whatever. But it also sounded like grunting. But I think that was Diane's bed, like her.
Maybe
bed.
she's masturbating while crying again.
Maybe, yeah, that was a rough scene. Not the sexy time that I was looking for. But those are, I think, that
my wife walks in while I'm watching that scene, and she goes, "Is she masturbating while crying?" And I go, "Yeah, as women do." And she goes, "Do they?" And I go, "Well, men don't do it." And she goes, "Well, yeah, I could imagine a woman doing this quite often."
Yeah, I don't think that's something. I mean, because if you're doing that, that's still a pretty good time. That's like, pizza's pizza type situation.
Yeah, okay, you must be thinking about something like sad yet like.
But if you're sad, you're not getting a boner. So notice appearances of the red lampshade. This is what I want to talk about. Is that red lampshade is
that the second clue?
No, this is the second. 10 clues. Yeah, this is the second clue. Notice the appearance of the red lampshade. And when Mr. Roke calls someone and says, "Hey, the girl's still missing," that guy calls another guy who then calls a phone next to a red lampshade. later on when Camilla calls Diane to invite her to the party on Mulholland Drive, that phone and that red lampshade are the one that Naomi Watts answers. So that little piece is either like it could be part of the dream too, and it's sort of playing into that, but it's like it also could be like she's the missing girl because she killed Camilla, is I think how this movie ends.
That's how this movie ends?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll explain it to you as we go along. But yeah, she hired that guy as a hitman to kill Camilla. And so the movie is a little bit out of order. Along with having a dream sequence.
Another movie that this movie reminded me of was Pulp Fiction.
A little bit, yeah, I could see that.
Kind of like the disjointed scenes and jumping back and forth. And also, this probably is one of David Lynch's most funniest films. Like, when the hitman keeps accidentally killing people, I'm like, that is top-notch comedy right there.
Yeah, he shoots the bigger woman through the wall, and she's like, she doesn't. The funniest part about that is she doesn't know what happened. He could have just walked away, but I don't know. I guess, yeah, no, he could have just walked away probably.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I got to kill everybody. Because then when that scene happens, the cleaning guy's so fucking creepy looking that I was like, oh, is this guy like gonna do something to him? And the cleaning guy just dies. He's just a normal dude that got killed.
And then the last witness is the vacuum cleaner, and you got to take that motherfucker out, you know?
That's what I'm saying. That guy looks weird.
No. The vacuum cleaner itself.
Well,
he shot the vacuum cleaner. Yeah.
And then that blew
which caused the entire building to like go off in sirens.
Is hilarious. That scene otherwise is like completely unnecessary. I guess except to introduce the hitman character, who then later on talks to a prostitute, and that prostitute is clearly Naomi Watts,
Okay,
like a doppelganger for her, wearing like a very similar outfit, similar haircut, like no bra, the same way that Naomi Watts,
like a prostitute drug addict thing, which is kind of like what Diane ended up being. Like, she didn't end up being that doe-eyed girl just right off the plane, you know?
And one of the questions I think too is like, so she's obviously Diane, but at some point she probably came out here, she was Betty, like not in name, but in like the person she was.
Sure.
And the point of the movie is like, you know, her getting spit out by Hollywood. And obviously we'll go into more detail. Can you hear the title of the film that Adam Kesher is auditioning actresses for? And it's like the Sylvia North story. So he says, Sylvia North story, Camilla Rhodes, and then the fake Camilla Rhodes, the dream Camilla Rhodes, comes in and sings for it. The only other time you hear that name is when Naomi Watts says, I met her on the Sylvia North story, meaning she was working with Adam again. So she might have saw the real Camilla audition for that Sylvia North story. She auditioned for it too, but she didn't get it. I think part of the implication here too.
Oh shit! So the whole thing where the company producers has basically a gun to Adam's head about like, hey, you better.
Not true.
No, hold on. You better cast this Camilla chick, right?
Yes. Is
Naomi Watts' psyche being like, oh, that must be why they didn't cast me.
Yeah, she's not better than me. I'm being screwed by this Hollywood entity,
elitist.
This cabal.
Yeah, right.
The other thing that she does is she's like, Camilla is a whore who sleeps around to get parts, and I'm not willing to do that. But then in the dream where she has her audition, the guy, they're all being very lecherous with her, and then she's doing the scene with the guy, and he kind of puts his hand down near her, and she grabs his hand and sticks it kind of on her ass.
Mm-hmm.
So in her dream,
that kind of on her ass.
Well, it's like the side hip and then the fingers, but you know, it's not in the crack. But it's like in her dream, she's like more willing to do what it takes to get the part. Even
though that's a fucking good scene.
It was that scene where, you know, we'll go in order at some point. Although we're going to go through things quickly because, as we said, a lot of this doesn't matter until the end. That scene made me start to realize, like, oh, the rest of the acting in this is purposeful, like the dreamlike nature of it, because the acting in like the dream sequences is bad. It's like bad, hokey acting.
That.
I felt like
okay. The only
dialogue.
The only thing I kind of see what you're saying is like when Coco the person who owns the
Yes.
motel, doesn't really own the motel. She ends up being the director's mother, which is weird, but she owns the motel and um condominium. I don't know. Her acting is bad, but I thought it's like, oh, maybe David Lynch casted her because she's like a famous old Hollywood actress, and maybe he wanted like a certain like look versus can she act well.
I thought the acting was sort of overdone and the lines were sort of like, well, your aunt trusted you to stay here. Well, I'll be going now. Maybe I can introduce. I just thought it was like overdone, but like I think it was purposeful to add to like it being a dream. I don't like
The
because
other
when you see her auditioning, when you see all the acting that's definitely not in a dream, like Naomi Watts's character in the dream, the way she acts versus the way she acts as a real like is 10 times like better acting to me. And obviously it's like more dramatic and darker, but
sure.
not even that withstanding. I don't know. I just felt it was like better done.
I'm so surprised. So David Lynch got nommed as best director for this film,
It's the only nomination.
and I am so surprised that Naomi Watts did not get nommed for this movie.
Quit saying nom. Just say nominated.
She got nom.
Okay. Well, they didn't show that in the movie. So she got nominated for awards before this, but
Yeah.
yeah, she didn't get nominated for this. She won a bunch of others. The story of Naomi Watts is so interesting. So this is like a big break for her. She lost her health insurance and was like about to be evicted and was going to like move back home. And I guess she was best friends with Nicole Kidman because I guess they're both Australian. And she talked her into staying until at least the film was released. And then like this was huge for her. This movie was originally going to be a TV pilot that was going to be a spinoff of Twin Peaks.
Oh, that makes so much sense because in Twin Peaks, and you don't know this, but you know, in Mulholland Drive, whenever they show like the nefarious producers, especially in the beginning, making backdoor deals about like who's
Yeah.
going to be right, you see these very like empty rooms, long red curtains, sort of things, right?
Yep.
That comes up a lot in Twin Peaks. So like aesthetically, I can see it.
So the film originally had a budget of 8 million. It was made for TV. And then ABC they canceled the pilot. They're just saying, we're not doing it, which is insane. I don't
It's
know.
insane.
Did
Twin
Twin
Peaks did
Peaks
very
not?
well.
Yeah.
No, it
So
did very well.
what the fuck are we doing? So then
I mean, second season was like, but
Studio Canal came in and offered him an additional 7 million, but he needed to make it a movie. And then like he was like, I don't even know what to do with this. And then he went and saw that ABC like destroyed his sets, sent them off to other places, got rid of all the wardrobe, got rid of everything. So he's like, oh, I got to fucking kind of start fresh on the way to end this. And then, so it was going to be like the beginning was going to be a dreamlike sequence, I think. And then it was going to end up being like a character from Twin Peaks who was an actress. So I think that would
okay.
have made the plot a little more obvious for Twin Peaks fans that went and saw this. Cause like, oh, that's the character. And you'd see the actor too. But I guess it would be a reveal. She's like, oh, my name's Betty. And then in the end, she's like, oh, my name's Audrey, whatever her name was in the show.
Oh, it was supposed to be Audrey. Okay, makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that would have worked a little differently. You'd be like, oh, no, I got to fucking watch Twin Peaks to enjoy this movie.
It's not a problem. Actually, I don't know how we would do this. You suggested us watching Squid Games maybe for like a spinoff of I Finally Watched.
I want to do True Detective season 1, but you've already seen it.
Yeah, but Twin Peaks would actually be really fucking fun because it would be a lot like this sort of thing.
Yeah. All right. So quickly back to the 10 things. It said this one's all right. So this one's obvious. An accident is a terrible event. Notice the location of the accident. It's like the accident's at the same spot where Camilla picks her up from the car. So I don't really know what that means. It says to notice
unless if that's what it means.
Yeah, it says to notice the key. So to me, he gives her the key. He says, oh, he doesn't give it to her. He's like, when you find it, you'll know it's done. So then later on, we see the blue key at her apartment, and that means he killed Camilla. Because she gives him a shit ton of money and a picture of Camilla. And then the next one is notice the robe, the ashtray, and the coffee cup. And the thing about that, there's a bunch. So I don't want to go into all of it. But the scene where they're having sex in Diane's place, and she's like, we shouldn't do this anymore.
Yeah.
You know that had to have happened way ahead of time, because the scene before, the neighbor comes in and says, hey, that's my ashtray, and takes it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And you also sort of know it's a flashback, because like she's bringing a coffee cup to the table, and then when she jumps over naked, one, she's naked, but two, it like turns into like a glass of whiskey. And then there's this whole thing about the robe. Like the robe is supposed to be for Betty, but she never puts it on. She only gives it to, Camilla.
Camilla.
And then Aunt Ruth, is actually not real. She's dead. So the other one is, did talent alone help Camilla? And I think that's supposed to be like kind of the point we made earlier about like why she's sort of jealous of her. And like she clearly, it's like she slept with the director. What's interesting about that part, and this is getting to the end, but she's like, we shouldn't do this anymore. And I don't know why, like, we don't really get a reason why she breaks up with Diane. You would think like, oh, because she's about to marry this director. But then why invite her to the party? And then she kisses the fake dream Camilla right in front of her.
Right.
And then looks at her and is like, oh, but then just completely moves on. It's kind of like, she's like, you never really meant anything to me. And then also it's like, you're kind of like a leech off me. I'm constantly having to get you parts.
Yeah. Kind of like how Naomi Watts got this part with Nicole Kidman's help, huh?
I don't know. Well, no, she already had the part. I think so. David Lynch apparently hired both of the actresses just off of their photo, which is
that's kind of amazing.
Really interesting. Yeah, and then I mean the career Naomi Watts has had.
I wonder if he hired Billy Ray Cyrus just off of his photo.
I think he was just like, this will be funny, because he had a sense of humor.
It was funny, and it took me so aback.
I just was like, is that fucking Billy Ray Cyrus? Like, what do we do? Like, really? And then it turns out that scene doesn't really matter. So I think we can start from the top. And like we can go through those a little bit more when we get to them. But the opening limo scene with the kids hitting into the limo and then her walking away, it's just like such a disorienting start to this. And I like wrote down, I was like, oh, this is like starts the mystery where we're like, who is this? Doesn't matter. It's like almost just like a red herring. It does make me wonder, if she paid off this hitman to kill her, is that supposed to be what actually happened? Is she got picked up by the limo right there? She was going to get killed right there. But then the dream takes over. Is the dream based on, because like she also,
but it's not Camilla's dream, it's Diane's dream.
And how does she know how the hitman did it? I guess maybe what would make sense is she's like, because that moment of going to that party is like the moment where Camilla broke Diane. So her dream of like, oh, this is where they're gonna kill her, is like where she broke me, but then it turns into like, oh, Camilla having amnesia and this whole thing. I don't know, that could make sense. The next note I put was love Robert Forster, and then he's barely in it, and his partner seemed like special. I don't know what he was doing.
In the director's cut, his partner gets the majority of lines, while Robert Forster's like, oh, okay, and it's just this very like David Lynchian sort of way of dialogue where it's. So, I mean, knowing that is probably part of the dream sequence, but he just went on and repeated himself like 10,000 times of the same thing. And so I think it was just not special. I think it was just a weird character that David Lynch wrote.
That is possible. The next thing I wanted to talk about was Winkies. And what I think is cool about this is, I've read this. I don't know if it's actually true. I don't even know how you'd fucking test this, but I read this one time that when you have a dream, if you see a face in a dream, you had to have seen that face in real life, that you don't have the capability to make up a face. So you either on TV, whatever. I mean, I guess back in the day before like technology, you would recognize everyone in your dream because you had to have actually seen them in real life. So, and there's way less people you're seeing now. Any face, you've seen millions of faces. So having said that, at the end when she's paying off the hitman, she looks past him and sees the dude who has the heart attack. It's right. Like, so she has just this offshoot dream about this guy having a heart attack that's related to this box that she's going to get. Yeah, the homeless guy has the homeless guy.
So the first scene of Winkie's is where, and I think this is one of the more famous scenes from this movie, is where he's explaining to the guy that's sitting across from him, "Hey, I've been here before. I had a dream just like this. You were over there. We walked out here just like that. And behind there was this grotesque homeless guy." And it plays out exactly like he can't stop it. Like it's like a train, right? Like it's going to point B and you can't do anything to derail this, right?
Yes.
And then it kills him.
Yep.
I thought this was like, this is a dream and this guy is just stuck in it. Like
I
this
mean,
might be Diane's dream, but it's just, he's just a product, or like a victim that's stuck in it.
well, and the way he looks at her is like, what the fuck, man? Like, why do you keep killing me in your dreams?
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah.
I mean, I think the main idea of the movie, there's that, and then there's a lot of these other things that I think are mostly left up to interpretation. Like,
So
obviously,
you think this is Diane's dream? This is not Camilla's dream by chance?
no, I think it's Diane's. Yeah,
Because who's the girl who ends up dead in the apartment?
it's Diane. She kills herself.
But then how do they find her body?
I mean, that part's. How do they find her body? Hmm.
And then why doesn't the neighbor recognize either of them if they've been her neighbor for
Well,
so
because
long?
that's a dream. She doesn't recognize them because it's a
So
dream.
she's dead, yet she's, so is this like like minutes, like the milliseconds before like dying? It's like your whole life flashes before your eyes, but in this case she dreams of her whole life flashing before her
I
eyes?
actually think more of the interpretation is she dreams of her death before it happens, but doesn't realize it's her death.
Okay, well that makes more sense.
Yeah. So next week, Naomi Watts coming to Hollywood, and this part reminded me upon second watch of May December, just like the very melodramatic music, the way it's shot. Like, she's an actress, and I thought the dialogue was a little bit like clunky and melodramatic. Like, so it also gave me that feel. Which, I mean, May December could have been a little bit of like a, you know, he was like, oh, let me give it a little bit of that feel. But I think that's a lot of things, right? She moves in Durant's apartment, finds the girl immediately in the shower. Just doesn't question it too much. Is just like, oh, okay, whatever. Yeah, you're in there. I'm
Well, I
gonna
thought
go
the
on.
misinterpretation of like her being on the phone to her aunt being like, your friend Rita. It's like, I don't know Rita. I'm like, oh, is that going to get played up to being like, did at any point in the movie, did you think that Betty was not Betty? Where it was like Rita is the niece and Betty is like the imposter?
I mean, as hard as I was trying to understand this movie, I had every thought before it ended. So yeah, that definitely could have been one of them. Yeah, she asks her question, and she said, "Oh, you know what? That's like, oh, I shouldn't be asking that. That's no, I'm sorry. I'll just let you go change." And then she like just goes about her day with this random person in the apartment. She's like, "Whatever, it's fine." The fact that she calls the aunt in the like in this that's later on, but she calls the aunt, and the aunt does not call the cops from Canada to be like, "Hey, someone's in my apartment. My dumbass niece won't kick her out, and is like just thinks it's fine. Can you go in?"
Sure.
Um, so next we meet Justin Theroux in the scene where Hedaya comes in and is like, "This is the girl for your movie." Just like talks in like very broken Kevin from The Office sentences, like, "Why use more words when less words do?" um, and he's like, "This is the girl," and the other guy too is just like, "Fucking Rain Man, this is the girl, this is the girl," like for your movie. And then he's like, "There's 6 lead actresses," and Hedaya just fucking screams at him. And then he says, "That girl is not in my film. Then it's no longer your film."
It's pretty good.
My impression?
Yeah. Also, Justin Theroux being Adam Kesher in this movie is such like did not look like Justin Theroux. It does not even look like how Justin Theroux usually looks in film. He's like, in this, Adam Kesher is such like a slimy, like little guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And usually Justin Theroux is like kind of a macho man sort of guy.
Well, very handsome, but he's lean. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
Yeah.
I like the other dude spitting the espresso out, and like in the beginning, they're like, "No, this one, you're gonna like this one." He's just like, "This is dog shit." And he has the waiter
But it
come back
doesn't
in.
matter. But it doesn't matter, David. This is all made up.
Yeah, because then they're like, "Mr. Rook, the director doesn't want him. Do you want him to be replaced?" So then there's this whole plot of like the director being fucking chased. This is the crazy part. So he goes to his home. We already talked about that. Then he goes to a hotel. Some big fucking dude goes and beats up Billy Ray Cyrus because he's like, "Adam, are you here?" And they're
He's like, I never liked Achy Breaky Heart anyways.
Yeah. Then he goes to a hotel, and this is hilarious because this is like the way dreams work, where he like they say something that just doesn't make sense. You keep going with it. He's like, "Hey, so the bank called. All your cards are canceled." And he's like, well, "How's the bank know I'm here?" And he's like, "Cookie, I paid you in cash." He's like, "Yeah, I'm letting you know, man."
But then fucking Cookie is the fucking guy at
Silencio.
Yeah. What's up with that?
I don't know if they ran out of actors or what. Yeah. I don't know.
What could it be? It could be, oh, this is kind of crazy. Could it be that Naomi Watts is in every situation that you see another character in? Like that seedy motel being confronted by Cookie. Could that have been Diane like earlier on in her life, and she's just kind of replacing Adam in this moment?
She could have. I mean, she's clearly like a drug addict. She's like been on hard times because her aunt died and she inherited money, but she could have already been out there. So yeah, like she could have gone through a bunch of these situations before. She could have been to that director's house before. So yeah, I mean, it's all possible.
She could have been Billy Ray Cyrus.
That's true. That's true. She is into women.
Yeah.
So we get the hitman talking to the prostitute. We already talked about that. And then she's like, "Let's call the cops anonymously." And then really, I think the next thing to talk about is the cowboy meeting.
Are we at like the fourth or fifth rule yet?
I mean, the rules go throughout. They're not really sequential like that. So the fourth one is who gives a key. Or no, that's the fifth one. An accident is a terrible event. I mean, we went through all the rules. They're just like, do you want me to send you them so you can pull them up?
Sure.
I'm not going to do that.
Oh.
We'll go over the rules again at the end if you really need me to.
I do, because you only stopped at like 6, and there's 7, 8, 9, 10.
I read them all.
You read them all?
Yeah, I read them all. We went through it. I don't know where you were at for that. I read every single one of them.
Jesus.
So what I like about the cowboy meeting is Justin Theroux is just as confused about this world as the rest of us. And the guy asks him a question, and he's like, "Yeah, I agree." He's like, "Did you just agree, or did you hear what I said?" He's like, "I agreed with what you said." And he's like, "What did I say?" And I was like, "Fuck, I have no idea what he said." And then Justin Theroux repeats him, and he's like, "All right, you passed my little test." And then he does this thing. He's like, "If you choose the woman, you'll see me one more time. If you don't choose her, you'll see me 2 more times."
So what's interesting, and I don't know if this plays in a big part of it, but he did not say that. He said, if you choose wisely, you'll see me 1 more time. And if you don't choose wisely, you'll see me 2 more times. And the fact that we as the audience do see the cowboy 2 more times, does that mean that we did not choose wisely, or Naomi Watts did not choose wisely?
I think it might be Naomi Watts because she dies.
She does die.
We see him at the party, and then we see him say, "Hey, Diane, it's time to wake up," which I don't know who that guy is. Why is he at the party and also telling her to wake up?
Because we had to see him 2 more times.
The wake up thing could be a dream, right? That doesn't have to be real. So we already talked about the audition, and then after that, the casting director takes her over to the other movie. She sees the dream Camilla, and she like runs away from this. She's like, "I can't audition this. I have to go back to be my friend," which is kind of like, I auditioned for this already in real life and I didn't get it. So she's like running away from it to me.
Yep.
Um, and then they go to Diane's apartment, meet the neighbor, sneak in, find a hideous dead body, and Rita screams, and it's got this cool camera thing when she comes out of like it almost like feels like it's echoing.
Did you notice like the scene where he has to audition the fake Diane and she's singing her song and he looks behind his shoulder and he sees Betty, right?
With the fake Camilla, yeah.
The fake Camilla, right? And he looks over his shoulder and he sees Betty with the really famous casting directors. By the way, that reminded me of working for the casting director I work for in LA, and that is so spot on. Like, I guess in this scenario, I was the female assistant, but her being like, "Oh yeah, what's his name, Wally or well, yeah, Wally Brown." She's like, "Yeah, Wally is great, but he's old, he's past his time." I was like, God. But anyway, so it's her interpretation of him like seeing Betty for the first time and being like, I thought it was going to be a moment where she's like, no, I don't care if a giant mob like company is threatening my life. I can't choose this girl. I have to choose this girl that's like in the background of the movie,
Well, no, what it is I would choose this girl back there on first sight. She's perfect for the movie. I would choose her over the 6 famous actresses. I would choose her over the people they're making me choose, but I have to, otherwise I lose the movie. That's what it is like I can just tell she's the best. It's because it's her dream.
It's her dream, right? Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
And then we can just, there's a sex scene. I think to me, this is just like, obviously it's a love story between these two, sort of maybe like one-sided, but it also to me was an indication like Betty's not that innocent.
Maybe when she's like, "Oh, is this your first time doing it?" It's like, no. Mm-mm.
Right. Because it's not, because they've been together. This is a dream after they've had their relationship. And then we go to this club, this theater. It's like probably the most dreamlike part of this. It's at 2 a.m. The way the camera like zips through the street and we get in there. Watts starts having a seizure. And then we get this beautiful song and the girls are crying. And I guess when the woman faints and the singing still keeps going, one of the tears on, I think, Betty like disappears because, oh, like this was fake. And the guy even says beforehand, he's like, this is all pre-recorded. None of this is real. And so then you see this woman singing and it's like, oh, it wasn't real, but it like was still so impactful. It's also just like,
yeah,
funny, not funny, but just, it's like, we listened to the entire damn song. That scene goes on for like, because it is, the impact of it.
This is where things start to get weird.
Well, it's actually where things start to get real.
Well,
although I don't think
real.
I don't think the blue box is how she got back to the real world, but yeah, they find the blue box.
Like the blue box is the representation of her like subconsciousness, right? And like the fact that it's the same color blue, and it opens up with a blue key,
a very weird blue key, like not a real blue key, just like this blue
like a
thing that
triangle
fits in.
Looking thing,
yes.
Right? And they get it at the club, don't they?
Yeah.
They retrieve it at the club, and then they go home and they're like, "Oh, we have to open this." So here's something so interesting. They go home and they hide the money in the box in a hat box, right?
Yes.
And they go home and Camilla is the one that retrieves,
because it also has the key. Well, no, it has. She has the key, and they already have the box.
I'm saying the box is with the money in the box hat, right? So Camilla goes to retrieve the hat box with the blue box in it, and
it doesn't have the blue box in it. The blue box was in the purse.
Oh, it's the key. You're right. Okay, yes, the key. She goes to retrieve the key, and Naomi Watts is like on the other side of the bed, like she's right off screen, like she just walked off screen,
and then disappears.
Camilla turns around and she's gone, and then she looks around the house for a little bit, which I thought was a really suspenseful scene. Like her, like you have the dark rooms in the background, like being really suspicious.
Yeah.
But nothing comes out of the shadows and nabs her or anything. But she goes and she's like, well, weirdly disappeared on me, but I'll grab and I'll open this box now. And that's when she disappears, the box disappears. You have this thing where Aunt Ruth is back, and I was like, wait, did they time travel? Like, what is all this? Or maybe that's not even Aunt Ruth. Maybe that's just some poor woman who they've like broken into her apartment this entire time with,
Well, clearly at some point, Diane has seen this place. I don't know why. So we don't know who that lady is, but she looks down and the box isn't even there. So first, I guess we're supposed to think that Camilla, Rita, like went into the box and the box falls on the floor. Then Aunt Ruth comes in, Aunt Ruth in quotes. And then it sort of cuts to the cowboy saying, Diane, it's time to wake up now. And now the neighbor comes by and it's like, I want my shit. I want my ashtray. And then she says, hey, those two detectives came by.
Right.
They're looking for you. And you're thinking like, oh, because she's been missing. But they're looking for her. And like she even sees them in the dream. She constantly sees like the cabal of Hollywood driving around looking for Rita. No, that's her subconscious. Like these are the cops looking for you because of what you did. Exactly. Clearly this hitman got caught.
Right, but also then if you were to take the deleted scene of Robert Forster back into play, maybe that's like the real life thing happening where they're trying to find Diane,
the murderer. Yeah, they're like, yeah. I agree. So next, she's just in her apartment. She looks drugged out of her mind, and then she sees Camilla looking good in a red dress. Then she disappears. Then she makes some coffee. And then she looks over the couch. There's Camilla, naked. Naomi's naked.
I gotta say, you know what? I shouldn't say.
You shouldn't, but we're already here.
But I think we both know what I was gonna say. Great actresses, superb acting. That's it. That's it.
Fucking great. So here I'll let.
That's it. I mean it.
So, there's this quote that I found on IMDb from Laura Herring, plays Rita, and she's like, I felt very vulnerable. Like the sex scenes, it was hard. She's like, I was friends with Naomi. It was very awkward. And she's like, and then David came up to us and said, now don't be afraid to touch each other's breasts. And then they do one more take, and that's the take they use. And I was just like, holy shit. Like things have changed. Like,
can you imagine David Lynch getting like 3 inches away from your face and going like, hey, can we get some titty action here?
Don't be afraid to grab them. That's what they're there for.
They really did though. They really grabbed him.
Okay, that's enough, Alon. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So,
just for anyone thinking about watching the movie, watch the movie.
So, they have this sex scene. She's like, we shouldn't do this anymore. And I'm like, is this a dream or is this her remembering the fight where they broke up? Right. She's like, first of all, why break up with her naked? I got to tell you. And if my friend is listening, I'm not going to use his name this time, but if he's listening, he'll text me like, why did you tell my story on here? But he went to break up with his girlfriend in her dorm, goes in, she comes out of the shower naked. He's just like, oh shit. And she's like, should I put on something for this? He's like, yeah, you should probably put on something for this. And then proceeds to break up with her.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
willpower.
Kind of amazing. I do want to also say that not getting this in 4K is really one of my biggest regrets.
Please stop. Okay. Anyway, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I watched it on a legal stream. How do you think I feel? So
damn.
They then next we get Rita working on the movie, and the director tells them to clear the set so he can fucking make out with her right then. And she's like, can Diane stay? He's like, yeah, she can stay.
Which is just Camilla just rubbing it in her face.
But that's what Diane would have wanted. So Then we get the jerk off crying scene that you talked about, which Naomi Watts apparently was so fucking awkward that she's like, it was the worst scene to film. And she like made them put like a fucking cone around her so she couldn't see herself doing it or something, just like to block out her vision. Because she's like, yeah, I think there were a lot of people on set, which is once again another thing you wouldn't do.
Well, here's the thing about acting, right? Here's the thing about masturbating, crying, and acting is that
Okay.
you can only do like 2 out of the 3, right? You can't do all 3. You don't have to do all 3, right?
Seriously, I don't know. I don't know what you're saying.
Well,
But also,
I'm saying she's acting the scene where she has to be masturbating and crying, and she has to be crying. She doesn't necessarily have to be masturbating about it.
I don't think she actually was. I don't know. No one's saying.
Well, it's not that hard. What, you real cry but fake masturbate? I don't know.
And let's move on. So she gets a call from Diane gets a call from Camilla to come up to the party. Gets to the party and she's like so happy. She's like, oh, she's it's.
I thought it was a proposal.
It's really well. It turned out to be not the way you think.
No.
But Diane is basically a dude in this situation. Who like you're like, oh, things are gonna work out again. Like everything's gonna be great. It's basically like the scene in 500 Days of Summer where he gets invited to the party and he thinks like, oh, this is my chance finally with Summer, and then she's like, oh, here's my fiance.
You say that she's acting like a dude, but the example you gave was another woman doing the exact same thing.
I'm saying Diane is the dude in this situation, getting her heart broken. Because she thinks like, oh, she invited me to this party. She wants me there.
Oh,
it's
she is Joseph Gordon.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we get a bunch of information too, because the landlady, who's the mother, is there, still named Coco. Didn't change that. And she talks about how she's from Canada.
You can call me Bobo, honey.
Coco.
No, I'm saying like the one thing she changes is from Bobo
Dodo
to Coco. Yeah.
So, and then she talks about how she met her on the movie, and she's helped me get parts. And then we see the fake Camilla, which I think is just to like, once again, like, hey, the whole dream thing. And then we cut to the diner where she pays off the guy, and then she goes home, and the fucking old people are miniatures that like run up and scare her.
I don't know.
And then she blows her fucking brains out.
I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think that's real. I think she's dead. I think she killed Camilla. She paid a guy to kill Camilla. Because the police are after her.
The blue key's on the ashtray.
The police are after her, and she's racked with guilt, and she kills herself. Spoiler alert, if you were here this long.
The old people being just a representation of her parents, I guess, right?
Yeah, something similar.
So can you go over the rules with me, please?
Sure. Pay particular attention to the beginning of the film. There's at least 2 clues revealed before the credit. And like I said, that's like the jitterbug contest being real and her winning. And she says that later, like, oh, I won. So you know that that's real. And then the red bed, which is, I think, the bed she kills herself in and like actually lives in.
Okay.
The red lampshade, which we talked about. The title of the film, we talked about in detail. The accident being the location where she's brought to the party. The key, the blue key, and we see later that she has it. And then it's like also represented by the blue key. This dream happens after she kills Camilla because she dreams about the blue key.
It's got to be.
Yeah, after she pays to have her killed. Notice the ashtray, the robe, and the coffee cup. And that gives you sort of the timeline. And then, this was one I skipped because what is felt, realized, and gathered at Club Silencio. And I found a website that's like, what is it? So felt, love, unreturned love, pain, tears, spasm, loss, fear, compassion. Realized, all is illusion. This is a dream. Hollywood is fake. The dream is over. And then Betty gets the blue box is what is gathered.
How did she remind me how she found the blue box again? It's like wrapped in a paper bag.
It was just in her purse.
Oh, it's just there. Okay.
Yeah, it's just there. Did talent alone help Camilla? And it's like, no, she's a hoe. And then notice the occurrence surrounding the man behind Winkie's. And I think it's just because she sees him at the end of the film
holding the box. The man, is that a man? Because it's played by a woman named Bonnie Aarons.
Well, so this thing says after Diane's death, we see the monster superimposed on top of the smoke, and then we see his face fade out while Diane's face fades in. The last appearance of this man is especially instructive because with the connection between his face and Diane's face, we were being told that this monster is yet another persona of Diane. So we realize he is a she. So yeah.
So hold on. Here's something amazing I just looked up. So the homeless bum behind Winkie's is played by Bonnie Aarons, who is a woman, right?
I figured.
Do you want to know what else Bonnie Aarons has played?
The mother of Naomi Watts. What was she played?
She's the nun from the horror movie Nun.
Oh, that lady.
Yeah.
She's got a thing she does.
She's got like a whole distinct thing, yeah.
Yeah, I've always. I mean, there's no way that this sounds like flattering to her, but she could play like a witch. Like, and she's pretty, but like she has the features where she would be like
a stereotypical, like what you think of as a witch. Yeah, definitely. I also want to add that the guy who plays the cowboy in the movie,
Yeah.
his real name in real life is Monty Montgomery.
Yeah, I think he's just like a producer or something that David Lynch was like, yeah, you can have this part, and he brought his own clothing. He just brought that shit to use.
It's pretty good.
And then where is Aunt Ruth? And we already talked about that. You know, she's actually dead, and so that's why that scene where she's like, "Oh, my aunt let me stay here," doesn't.
Is that
work.
the last clue?
Yeah.
Oh, it could be. It's like she inherited all this money, and maybe Aunt Ruth's place is the place that she once owned, but then because of drugs and everything, she lost it, and she's reverted back to that dumpy place.
Yeah. There's another line too where she's like, she says to Rita, she's like, I'm from Toronto, and then I've come to this dreamland, which is one like she's innocent at that time, and then two, it's also we're in a dream.
Do you remember that creepy old woman who like came to her door and was like saying,
Yes.
"Hey, someone in here is in trouble"? Did that ever is that?
Did that mean anything?
Did that mean anything?
I have no idea.
Because that woman was actually not wrong.
Yeah, no. So I don't know what it would actually mean, but so that's Lorraine. Yeah, I don't know. No, wait, that's not Lorraine. Lorraine's his wife.
Lorraine's his wife. I don't know who it is.
Louise. Played by Lee Grant. Oh, she could get it back in the day. Let me tell you,
dude. Have you seen Coco back in the day?
So Lee Grant, according to IMDb, is still with us. She was born in 1925. If she makes it till October 31st, she will be 100 years old. Yeah, I don't know what that meant. I didn't see anything on that. I think we've cracked enough of the code though that I don't think we need to get to the bottom of necessarily that.
You're telling me the creepy lady in the movie's birthday is Halloween? That's awesome.
Well, no. Well, I mean, there's multiple creepy ladies, but we think one's a homeless man. But yeah, the creepy lady who's actually a lady. Yeah, October 31st of 1925. So when I first finished this movie, I was like, I have to figure out how to talk about this on the pod because he just passed, and I'm like, I guess I'm just not a David Lynch guy. And the last movie that this really reminds me of is Enemy, where I watched a movie and I'm like, I have no clue what the fuck I just watched. I don't even it was that good. It was shot well. I like Jake Gyllenhaal. And then I read something on it, watched it again, and I'm like, holy fuck. That is an amazing movie.
Sometimes that's all you need. And there's nothing, you should be ashamed about that with.
Yeah, that I have to have movies explained to me. No, there's nothing at all. I take things too literally. So I eat what the director feeds me.
Sometimes, David, movies are an analogy or metaphor.
Yeah, you love.
And sometimes it's about cancer.
It's always. But watching it the second time, this is great. I think it holds up a lot better. Like now knowing what I know, because when I first started, I was like, oh, I guess this is one of those you had to be there type moments. But
back in 2001, I got to tell you though, we got to do Blue Velvet. we have to do Blue Velvet because I would love your interpretation of Blue Velvet.
How much nudity is in Blue Velvet?
It's a good bit.
All right, we'll do it. But yeah, I mean, overall, like, I'm very glad we did this one. I'm very glad I took the time to watch it again because I said I was going to. It is really great. And the fact that the beginning doesn't really matter, doesn't affect too much for me. It is, pretty close to like a masterpiece in my eyes.
But, for everything that doesn't matter directly to the affecting of the characters in the plot, it does matter, right? Because it paints this really interesting picture of an interpretation of Hollywood that what's so interesting is David Lynch being a big director and up till his death, still a very prominent figure in, Hollywood. And shitting on Hollywood and all of its horribleness that comes from it. It's like even he 24 years ago could see how bad, and now it's like with all the Diddy stuff and with all the like the stuff like that's coming out in the media, we as the general public is also seeing it. Did I ever tell you about the time where like 2 years or so before the Me Too movement, when I was living in LA, someone told me something about some famous guy and I was just like, that's not true. No way you could cover that up. And then 2 years later we learn all this shit about Kevin Spacey.
Was that the one you were told about?
Yeah.
Also, like, David Lynch saying Hollywood's a sleazy place as he's like, grab her titties tighter is a little bit funny, but
yeah, but you can imagine him doing it in the most respectful way.
Very respectful. No, I was joking. And when I said, like, obviously the first part of the movie doesn't matter, it's like the whole point of the movie, right? Like the point he's trying to get across is in that section, and then the end of it is wrapping up the story part of it and like all just bringing it together pretty perfectly. Yeah, I mean, he's shitting on Hollywood. He's talking about like, and also just like it's not even an arc, but just like how Diane is affected and how she is trying to, in her mind, like rationalize what has happened. At the same time, she's going down the cycle of drugs and depression and like,
yeah. I mean, imagine she at one point was Betty.
That's what I'm saying.
And then she inherited some money from her aunt. She got like a few good gigs, and then she just blew it all away on trash.
But also she's getting rejected, and the only parts she can get, she even admits, is from Camilla, right? So it's like the rejection of the parts, the rejection from Camilla, the only thing that was helping you.
You see all the looks the people at that table gave her when she admitted that the only part she got was like help from Camilla.
Yeah, because just like, you're like a remora fish. Like you're just so. I gave my final thoughts. So if you have anything,
I mean, I've seen Blue Velvet. I've watched Twin Peaks, and we recently did Eraserhead, and so I kind of knew what I was stepping into with this movie and David Lynch, but I really did think, I thought, oh, this is probably more. First of all, it's not called Eraserhead, right? And so I'm like, this is probably more grounded than his other movies. And at the time when I'm seeing Blue Velvet, I thought that was the weird one. So now I'm thinking Blue Velvet's probably like maybe one of his more straightforward ones. In saying that, I really like this. And I think the more I dive into his movies, the more I appreciate his style of cinema. And I kind of, after watching Mulholland Drive, really want to go back and rewatch Twin Peaks, because I think I'll even appreciate it and understand it more than the first time I did.
Thanks for listening to another episode of I Finally Watched. This is David.
And this is Alon. We finally watched Mulholland Drive.